I've never really been like this crazy religious person. Growing up, my parents, we didn't go to church. There was no, like, I wasn't forced or told that I had to go to church. So it kind of growing up formed my own thoughts and opinions about God and stuff like that. The thing is, like, we weren't anti religious, or we weren't anti believers. We weren't non-believers. My mom always talked about certain aspects, just things that come up. A lot of it was the moral aspects, that are really, you could just extract. Well, actually, I did that with ChatGPT. I pulled those out, all of the good moral aspects, so I could get kind of a list of those aspects of the Bible. And so we were shown things like that. We were shown courtesy and respect, kindness, things of that nature. All the what we would consider, what most of society would consider the good aspects of being human. Being a person, a good person. And so all those values and morals were always instilled in our everyday life. But we never, like I said, never really went to church. There was a time for a while that I went to, when I was a kid, I went to Sunday school. Our neighbor was like a preacher or something at a church, and I went a few times with his daughters. But that was about it. And then as I grew up and became an adult, my first wife and I, when we were living in Tennessee, we started going for a little bit. One of my supervisors was a preacher at a Pentecostal church, and we went there for maybe a month. We weren't feeling it. It was just not one. I don't know if you've ever been to a Pentecostal church, or maybe they're not all like that. I don't know, but this one was one of those where they're running around the church, crying and hollering and talking in tongues, and it just felt odd to us. It was weird, so we tolerated it as long as we could, and then just kind of gave up on it. But nevertheless, my thoughts and my views about the afterlife or a creator have always kind of been the same. Like when people ask, or if it comes up in conversation about, do you believe in God or this and that, I like I said, I've never been a non-believer, but I've always believed in something. I've always believed in some sort of higher power or some sort of greater being, but couldn't ever really put words to it or put an image to it. I just couldn't. And there was a time when I think I was about 3, when my mom had told me that I started telling her stuff. I don't know if this all came out in one conversation or over the course, of a couple conversations, but in a nutshell, I was telling my mother at, I guess, the age of 3 or 4 years old, that I used to be a businessman and that I lived in New York. And she, thought, oh, really? And I guess I had told her at some point I was leaving work, and I don't know if I was making my way to a car or what, but I was in a suit. I had a briefcase, and somebody mugged me and stabbed me or something, and I died right there. And that you can imagine for a mother to hear her, basically a toddler, that was, I was at the point where I was fully speaking sentences. For a child that young to tell their parent a story that detailed and that specific, briefcase, suit, New York, job, things that that, your typical 3-year-old just doesn't say. So that must have been really spooky for my mom, a mom, to hear something like that. So moving forward, as I grew up, that never really came up, other than when we were talking about stuff like this. I never really had any more, whatever you want to call it, memories or visions of stuff like that again. It just wasn't relevant. It wasn't, or at least it wasn't relevant enough to resurface. All right, so keep all that stored and put that, on the desk right here. So fast forward to recent, like within the last couple months, I have really gotten into this YouTube channel called Coming Home, and they're basically interviews, and they're interviewing people who have had NDEs, or near-death experiences. These stories are if you like listening to podcasts or listening to good stories, it doesn't matter if you're religious or not or whatever, because like you've heard me saying, I'm not the deepest religious person, but if you like listening to good stories, go check out that channel. I do not know these people. I don't have no affiliation to them. I just happen to really like them. I like listening to the stories. And every now and then, or I shouldn't say every now and then, a lot of them, but every now and then I'll hear one that'll just really hit home. And it's basically got to do with them talking about what they're experiencing, things that they're seeing or feeling or going through. And it's pretty crazy. So, I mean, recently there was one, and maybe I'll put up a little clip of it here somewhere. I don't want to infringe or do any copyright stuff, but I mean, if I put it up, it's just for the sole purpose of you getting to see what I'm talking about.
And that will allow you to learn what you need to learn in order to go back and make your life one that's worth living.
I guess I'll start off with what fascinates me about them. And I've got notes right here, and that's exactly what it is. If you see me looking down, it's just notes. It's not even that many notes. But what I find fascinating is they're all very similar. And all of these people do not know each other. A lot of them talk about this feeling of when they leave their body, when their soul leaves their body, that they kind of hover in the room and they're overseeing what's taking place or what's happening when they had just passed away. And as well as they can see and acknowledge what's going on, there's very little connection from that to them. They're not scared. They're not like concerned. They don't even see that as them. They just see it as a situation that's going on, and they're like, oh, that's awful. Look what's going on down there. And yet the fact that they're basically floating in the air above all this doesn't even like spook them. It just all feels normal. It's all to them. What they're seeing and going through is new at first, but it's acceptable. It's like, oh yeah, this is just what, this is normal. It's weird. It's kind of weird, but they don't seem too stunned by it. But some of those stories are really intriguing. With there's one where a guy said he saw two paramedics come into he was in a garage working on a truck. Two paramedics came in from the back door, and this guy described what they looked like and everything. And apparently when those two came in, he was already gone. They had already lost a pulse, like everything. He was not with them anymore. The only way he could have seen them come in would be is if he was an observer in the room. So that kind of validates that he was actually out of his body and observing everything. That was really neat. But recently there was one that I was watching, and they started describing things like when they look at their body and they go, wow, how did I fit in that? Because they have this overwhelming feeling of vastness, like big, not like fat or, like not like that, but just being bigger. And they look at the body and go, wow, how did I fit in that? How did you get all of this in that? And that part right there is neat to me, because I haven't had these dreams in a while, but for a while I was having dreams where I felt that bigness. I felt like I was too big for my hands, like were clenched up in one of the dreams, that were clenched up as fists, and they just felt humongous, like they were gonna explode out of my hands. My hands were gonna come out. It's just weird sense of feeling in a dream, right? I've had it with my face and my head and my teeth. Like my teeth, everything just felt big. So when they, one of the ones that I was watching mentioned being too big to fit in their body, that kind of connected to that dream, those dreams that I used to, and I used to have them, every so often. It wasn't like it was just one, but that connected. I was like, maybe that's how the best way to describe that feeling. That's what I was going through in this dream. But then it makes me think, or was it a dream? Was it a memory of something that happened at some other time? I don't know. But that was another connection that just really resonated with me. And then there was also a moment where one of the ones I watched recently, a woman talked about seeing God or meeting God, but she didn't see him, it wasn't known like this is God. It was known to her, this is the creator. This is who has created everything. But she said, in meeting them, it wasn't like you couldn't put. She said you wouldn't call it a noun. It was more like an adjective. It was more. She described it more as a just kind of a everything. It wasn't a he or a she or a body. There was no face. That's the other thing. They all talk about light and about how a light will come to them. And they'll recognize the light. They'll like know who that is, or it's familiar, and they speak without talking, without it's all just kind of like your thoughts. You just know. If you have a question, the second your question enters your mind, it's already answered. So those are just interesting things, and watching them really just kind of puts my mind out there thinking, like, what if there is something to this? So looking at my notes, all similar stories. And that's another one. They all have a feeling of comfort and love, like overwhelming love and comfort. Like they don't want to come back to this, to what we're in right now. They don't want to go back to their body. They're like, no, that's not me. That's really, that is a confined space, and it's tight, and it's painful, and it's sad, and it's chaotic, and roller coaster. Here, everything is just comfortable and loving. So those are, I don't know, kind of gives you hope that if we are going to be going to another side, that maybe there's some truth to this. Maybe there's some truth to that the stories that they have. I definitely recommend you going and watching those, because they are so interesting. Let's see, what else do I have? I'm down to the last one, I think. They talk about remembering where they are during it as where they're from. So this one lady said that she was approached by one of these beings of light, and they started speaking to her, which again, they don't speak like this. They speak thought to thought. She said the second they started communicating with her, she lost it and was like crying, because she remembered that this is where she's from. This is home. And I think that's why they call the channel Coming Home. Such a good channel to watch. Good stories. I love watching these stories. Again, I I don't make any solid ties to, like, from their stories to, God and Jesus and all that. And like, again, I'm not dismissing those things. I'm just saying that everything that they describe is almost pinpointing exactly how I've always felt. Exactly. Like, I can't even, exactly is not even the best word. Like, it is so on point with how I've always felt and thought about, the afterlife, or where we're from, where we go to after this. Good stuff. I don't know. I would love to do a live stream and talk about this with somebody else, like, bouncing stuff off each other and get into a good conversation, because these things are just well worth it. I'll try to put a link for their channel somewhere. I highly recommend watching them. But like I said, there's just so many similarities to the way I've always felt. And I've always felt like, we do go somewhere after this, but I didn't know where. I didn't know what. I'm kind of one of those people that if I haven't seen it, smelt it, felt it, touched it, I don't know that I can say that it exists. I have to experience it. And I know that's not good. That leads you away from faith. And, that's not what a lot of the teachings in the Bible are about, but that's how I feel. So regardless of whether that's what's in there or how I'm supposed to be, it's how I am. And these stories are just fascinating. Very, very fascinating. If you want, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the afterlife and about these stories, if you've seen any of them, or just based on what you heard me say today. Let me know what you think about it. What's your opinion? No, I'm not looking for arguments. I'm just fascinated by these stories and fascinated by the way they describe them. It makes you want to go there as well. Not like going and off on yourself just so you can be there. I'm just saying it makes you want to experience what they're talking about. So leave a comment below and let me know what you think about all this. And that's all I have for that for now. I plan to try to talk a little bit more about this stuff, and I've got some other ideas coming up. So there you go. There you have it. That's all I got. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.